In this video, we're going to review how to do an inventory using Basis, an iPad, and Sage 300. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm in Sage 300 right now. So I'm going to go into the Basis module, which is called BassWeb, and I'm going to click on the inventory module. So here I have three options. I have the export, the import, and the transfers. The transfers will be covered in a different video, so I'm going to focus mostly on the export, the import, and how to work with the Basis desktop program and the iPad. So the first thing I want to do is I want to decide what it is that I'm counting. So I'm going to click on inventory export, and here I have a range of items that I can pick. So I'm going to pick that range here. It's a small range from item A 15,000 to 17,000. I'm going to create a new inventory worksheet. This is exactly the same as if I had done it within ACPAC, so it's the same as if I go to my physical inventory module and create the worksheet. We're going to make sure we clear any outstanding inventory, and we're going to clear any worksheet. So once, basically what I've done here, I've picked a range of items that I want to count, and I'm just going to export that to Basis. So this actually does two things. It exports the inventory to Basis, and it also creates the worksheet so that it's ready to be counted in Sage 300. So once I'm done this, I can minimize Sage 300, and now I'm going to go into Basis. So from the main menu of Basis, I go to Inventory, and what I get here is I get a view of the range of items that I've exported. If I haven't updated the items in my iPad, I'm going to click Send to Cloud, and what that will do is that I'll just open a small window and send the information so it becomes available for the iPad to pull in. This only needs to be done if we have new items. If we have exported all our items, we don't need to do that as long as they're within the iPad. And when we get to the iPad part, I'm going to demonstrate how to bring in those items if we hadn't done that before. So this first page here is just a view of the current inventory in ACPAC based on what I sent, Sage 300, based on what I just exported. It's going to show me on-hand quantity. It's going to realize if the item is serialized or lot numbered. The lot numbers and serialized inventory will be covered in a different video. So for today, we're only going to concentrate on regular inventory. So those items are not serialized or lot numbered. It also gives me the primary location, which is the bin location within Sage 300 where the items are located. If we have manufacturer's item, the UPC code, they'll also be illustrated here. And if we have more than one unit of measure, we'll export each one as a unique item so that it can be scanned based on its UPC code. So let's go into our inventory counting screen, which is at the bottom here. And Basis will always ask us if we want to refresh the scan data. I'm going to say yes. The scan data is anything that would have been sent from the iPad. So when I get here, I actually have some data that was from a previous inventory. We never delete it until the user is ready to start. So in this case here, I want to start fresh. So I'm going to get rid of the old inventory, and I'm going to do that by clicking on this button here that says Clean Up All Tables. What that does is that simply clean up the count tables from Basis. So I'm going to do that, and when this is done, I start with a clean slate. So what I'm counting right now is location 1, which in Basis we call warehouse 1. And this is where all the items as I'm counting them are going to appear. We have a bunch of report here. The only report that's relevant at this time is a report called Not Scanned Item. What this will tell me is that any item that have been assigned to be counted but hasn't been scanned yet, which obviously is all of them since we haven't started, I would see on that report. So I can use this report as a starter point. So this is what I'm expected to count. I'm expected to count all those items, and these are the quantities that I'm supposed to count. So I'm going to keep that as a reference just so that I know what I'm counting. Any item that doesn't get counted, we have the option to zero it out. So let's go ahead and just count 4 items, 15,000, 16,000, 3 items, 15, 16, and 17,000, just for the sake of making things easy. To close it, we click on Print Preview and to close the Print Preview. So now I'm ready to start counting, and that process is actually going to be done on an iPad. Now that I'm ready to start on my iPad, I'm going to log in. I'm going to refresh the inventory just to make sure I have everything updated, and then I'm going to start scanning some items. So first I log in with my username, password, and I have to select the warehouse where I'm going to be scanning. So I'm ready, I log in. So the first thing I want to do, just to make sure I have the freshest item in my iPad, I'm just going to sync my inventory. So I'm going to go to my settings, and then I'm going to go to syncs, and I'm going to sync my inventory master. This is not always required. This is only if I have some newer information that would have been brought in. So because I sent a fresh set of information, I'm doing that just to make sure the iPad actually keeps all the information within its own memory, so that as I'm scanning, it compares locally, which is a great advantage because that means I don't have to have wireless while I'm scanning. I only need a wireless network to send information back and forth. So I've refreshed my inventory. Now I'm going to go to my inventory screen, and I'm going to go to inventory count. So here is where I would be actually scanning the item. First thing I want to do is I just want to go and check my settings here. So I have my Bluetooth scanner enabled. I have auto Bluetooth scanner, and I'll cover that in a minute. This is just allows me to do a fast scan just by adding items. Initially, I'm not going to do that. And audio for scan allows me to have a specific sound based on the scan success or failure. So let's start with our first item. Obviously I can't scan because it's an emulator. The other thing I want to do is I want to actually put a location. So first I'm going to scan all the items that are in my location A1. And once I scan my item, because I'm not actually scanning it, I'm just putting the part number, I click on code. If I had been scanning it, it automatically would have filled this information. So it's asking me for my information. So here, let's say I count 30 of them. And then in my different location, oh, sorry, I forgot I have to say, once I do my 30, I have to click accept. That's critical. So now I'm scanning another in a different location here. And here I'm going to enter my quantity. And done. And accept. As I'm clicking accept, I can see that there is a button that says scan that will actually show me, and I'm just going to check my settings. Okay, so I've scanned 2 items. I'm going to go into fast mode to scan a few more. So I'm still on location A1 here. And in fast mode, what I would do is every time I scan something, it would automatically put it into my count. So I emulate that by just clicking on enter. So by doing this, I get a sound and a green success scan indicator. So I've just done that. The second time it actually is yellow. The first time it actually shows green, the second time yellow, just to show me that I've scanned this item before. If I take an item that actually doesn't exist, I get a red scan. And you can't hear it here because this is an emulator, but on a real iPad or iPhone, you would hear a very distinctive sound, which would make it so that you don't necessarily need to watch the iPad as you're doing the scan. So I'm going to go back into manual mode just to add more because I have a lot of them. So I'm just going to turn on, and we can go back and forth here as we please. So here I'm going to put another 20 of those, and I'm going to accept them. And let's do one more. So I can see so far that I've scanned 5 items, and every time I actually scan something, it increments it. If I make a mistake, I just open my scan list where I would see always the latest one at the top. If I need to delete it, I just swipe from left to right and hit the delete button. It'll actually remove this scan, and then I can go back and scan another one. Okay, so I've just added this. I'll do change my location. So you can see how easy it is to scan as you're going through. Just scan the item, put in the quantity. I'm doing it manually here, so I have to pop the keyboard up and down, but when you scan, you actually have full control over the keyboard directly from the scanner, so it makes it a lot easier. I'm going to do a couple more items here. And let's say this is my final count, so I'm just going to do one last one. I'm going to review my scanned item, and now I want to send them to the desktop. So I'm just going to click on send, so I can see that I've scanned 7 different instances. Doesn't really matter when or where the item is, as long as I scan the location. Obviously the location is optional. So I'm now told that the items are going to be sent to the server, and that's it. I've just done all my items, I've sent them to the server. So what I just did here, I updated my iPad with the latest count, scanned a bunch of items, some using the fast mode, some using the slow mode, various locations, and then I sent it back. So we're now going to go back to the desktop. We now have completed the scanning process. It could have been 20 iPads, it could have been one iPad, it makes no difference. All the information is actually being sent to a cloud computer where it's now ready to be processed. So if I go to inventory, now depending if I'm working on the local cloud or a remote cloud, if I'm working on a remote cloud, I need to click this button here that says get to cloud. And what that do is that will actually take the information from the hosted solution to the local. In this case here, I'm working on a local solution, so I don't need to do that, but that's something that you need to understand whether you're working with or not. So it doesn't hurt anything. If I hit it, it'll still, because it's the same computer, it won't do anything. But if it was on a hosted solution, getting from cloud would actually just bring the data locally. So when I go to my inventory counting, I'm prompted again to refresh the scan data. The reason we ask that question is that you may have multiple people looking at the same screen, so we don't want everybody to be refreshing. One person would be in charge. So I'm going to click yes. So what I get here is now I get a combination of all the scans that I had. So I scanned this item and I can see at the bottom, so my accounting system says I had 48, I counted 50. At the bottom I can see that I counted 20 in location A1, 30 in location A2. My second one, I'm told that I had 30 and I counted 8. And if you remember, this is the one that I was scanning individually, so every time I scanned one, it actually added a quantity of 1. And this is the first one I counted in a different location. And this is a third item that I scanned, and in this case I scanned 999. My accounting package says I had 1,000. So if this is all I'm counting, then I have here two options. The first option is I can just import this count, and what this will do is it will only update those 3 items. And the second option would be to create a list of all the items that I didn't count, so they would be forced to become 0, and then we'll update that. So first of all, I'm just going to adjust this because I realized I made a mistake here. So I had 30 and I counted 8. I found another 20 in a different location. So when I found another 20, I have two options here. I can go with the scanner and scan them and do exactly what I just did here. If I'm on this page and I need to refresh the data that's scanned, I just click on the refresh button. If I'm going out and go back in, it asks me the question whether I want to refresh or not, so I can do it at the time. But let's say I found another of this item here. Let's say I find another 20 in my location A4. So I've actually just adjusted my count here, but this is actually an editable list of everything that I've counted. And once I've made a change here, I can change anything I want actually here, and then click on this button that says adjust count by location. And what that will do is that will reflect in my grid the counts that I had. So in this case here, I now have 27 and I have 999. Let's say I want to see still what I have not counted. I'll be able to still go to my report, the not scanned item report that we looked at before. Click on report, and I can see now that I have those 3 items that I didn't count. So let's say we want to add those items to our count so that they get zeroed out in Sage 300 since we're not counting them. We do that by simply clicking on the button add item not scanned to inventory list. So what that will do, the filter is actually the warehouse, so we always want to say yes. So what that just did here by clicking this button is that it added those 3 items with a 0 count, so that whatever it is that we didn't count, if we want to assume that we don't have it and that's why we didn't count it, we can just add it onto the count. If we find an item that we shouldn't be adjusting to 0, we can always just delete that item. So I'm going to select that one item here. I have 1,000 of them. I don't want to zero it out because it's too many. I'm just going to hit delete on here, and it actually will allow me to remove it. On this one here, if I find some, I can say, okay, well, I had 400. I'm going to add 400 here, and I don't even need a location. So what I have here now is I have the 3 items that I counted. I have 1 item that I adjusted manually here. I have one item that I haven't counted, so it'll get zeroed out. And I had another item that I hadn't counted, but I decided not to upload it because the variance was too big and I wanted to make sure that I would adjust that one manually. I can also do a manual adjustment here by faking the scanner. And what this button here does, add manually, it allows me to just add items directly from my count. Same way as if it had been scanned. So this is just another way of adding items if we wanted to use laptops to modify things. So what I've done here, I've just opened that screen, allows me to add an item, and then it tells me that once I refresh, it will be reflected. So I'm going to do that. So now that I've reflected it, I refreshed it, I can see that I have 51, and the last one is the one that I just added manually. So there is different ways of adjusting the counts. The iPad is usually the preferred one because it's on the floor, but once we've finished. So now we're going to do our final review. So I'll go back in Basis. And here, what I want to do is just take a view at my final reports before I actually go and upload it to Sage 300. So the two reports that are relevant, we have a scanned item report. This will show me everything that I counted, everything my accounting package says I have on hand. And if I had dollar value, it would actually show me the dollar value of the discrepancies. And the other report that we can look at is what we haven't scanned. Now what I did in this case here, I had one item that I had added to my count as not scanned, and then I removed it, so it's still showing. So those two reports basically give me a good snapshot of what it is that I've counted between those two, between that range of items that I had decided to count. So this is done. We don't need this anymore. I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to go to Sage 300 where I can now review and import my counts. So how I do that is that I go to Inventory and Physical Inventory Import. I select my warehouse and I click on Import Counted Quantity. I've already done that just for the sake of reference here. And what happens when I do this is then I can go back to my regular physical inventory module in Sage 300. Normally what we would do is we would go add the inventory counts here manually, but because we've already done it, we don't need to. So what happens here is this was actually uploaded directly from Basis. So what Basis is showing me here is the item that I counted. This item here is the one that I had not counted. So because Sage 300 is set up to automatically put a zero variance on any item we don't count, it automatically put in the 1,000 here, and then these are the ones that we counted. This is the one where we actually said to add the item not scanned, so we actually forced a quantity of 0. So these are my counts here. I can still adjust them, I can still delete them, I can still do everything that I do normally at Sage 300. If this is good, then the final process is to go and do an inventory, to post my inventory reconciliation. I can also do my inventory reconciliation report. So this would be the final process. That's a standard ACPAC procedure. And we post it. So once we post it, it will create the discrepancy report, and then we just need to finalize the day-end process to complete the process and update the inventory. And this completes this video on how to do an inventory using Basis and Sage 300. Thank you for listening.